go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. I think everybody's been introduced to everybody, so I go around the table again, but I'm here, Carol's here, Doug is here, Kirk is here, Emily's here, Kathy is not, she's traveling with me. But we've got Don Stahl, understood your name correctly, and John Behill from Black Hills, and Andrew Heinrich from Guzman. And do we have anybody online?
Yeah,
Jerry Fry is an attendee online.
yeah. Anybody get the question? I can't remember if it was on Facebook or where it was about the credits.
So we've got that question. That's on
Okay,
the agenda.
okay.
So we'll see if we can get that answered here today. And so I guess first off this morning, we've got a presentation from Black Hills from Generation Dispatch and Power Marketing. Sure, go ahead.
So just a quick introduction, Don Stahl is part of he's the director of our Generation Dispatch and Power Marketing Group. With us today from South Dakota. And so I don't know how he starts in South Dakota, and I started in Pueblo and he got here before me, but it happened. Brian, I don't know, is it easiest for him to drive or you to drive? How do you want to work?
I can bring this mouse down and you can drive. Let me just share it to the presentation and it should be good to go.
Okay, well, while he's doing that, just a kind of a quick, I guess, just to bring back why Don's here today. And part of that purpose is because you all got a chance to go see our generation assets known as the Pueblo Airport Generating Station. And there were a few questions generated there about, who asked for power, when they asked for power, or why they asked for power. And so Don's here really just to help kind of connect all those dots with the group and answer your questions. And I will let him give an introduction of himself.
Sure. Morning, everyone. As John said, I'm the director of Generation Dispatch and Power Marketing, which we refer to as GDPM within the company. So just a little background from me, about 15 years experience in the power industry, mostly with power generation. So I started my career in the power plants. Where I started with Black Hills was actually building the Pueblo Airport Generating Station. So I lived in Pueblo for the first 4 years of that facility. So it's great to be back. Love the weather. It's going to be a beautiful day. So good to be back in the area. So a little bit about GDPM. We're a department of about 25 people. Half of those folks are on a rotating shift. There's 2 operators per shift in our control center. One of those positions, just because of how we're regulated, is required to be on site. So through the pandemic, one of those individuals was on site the entire pandemic. There was no work from home for that position. So 24/7 shop, always there, always watching how things are going out here in Colorado. So just in general, high level, what we do in that department is we dispatch generation or make purchases to serve the load. And that involves talking to the folks at PAGs and starting the units, shutting off the units, and then buying and selling energy where that's appropriate, where it makes sense. So this is just a high level overview, just a basic structure of an electric utility. So we toured at PAG, is there in red, the generating station. And we, as a department, take that and we match it to what we have in green. So the green could be considered Canyon City, and we make sure we're generating enough to serve the load throughout all the Colorado electric system. So that green equals blue, basically. I did say at times we do make purchases. In that case, you can just take the generating station out of there and fill that in with a purchase, but it's usually a combination of both. So it also includes managing our wind farms, and as that's a variable resource, still making sure that those are equal, that's why that's a 24/7 operation.
So do you, Don, do you mind if questions as you go through?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the transmission customer, is that like an heavy industry or something like that?
Yeah, you drove past Folsom on the way here. Folsom would be a good example of that. And that gets into different customers and different tariffs, which is not my department, but yes.
Right.
Basically.
Right. And so how do you actually, or maybe this will be covered, but how do you actually measure what the load is so that you can call for the resources to meet that, match that?
All the load is metered, usually, it's the transmission departments or their arena, but they're metered, say at that substation step down transformer, say we have a meter right there, and we have a meter for our transmission customer. And those are fed in through, all the way from here to South Dakota, and we monitor that real time. So Folsom trips and say 10 megawatts goes away, we know that immediately.
Yeah. So it's really remote monitoring. Is that via the internet, or how is that monitoring happen to the meters?
We call it SCADA, so it's not public internet, but it is.
Gotcha.
Communication.
Usually you use T1 phone lines, right? Is that what you guys would do?
Some of it, there probably is that and a backup, so, yeah.
How far out of the balance can generation go versus load before you got problems?
So that gets more into, the electrical side of it, transmission side of it. So our BA is also in there with us, and they're PSCO, they're the balancing authority that really has to meet certain standards. Now, we help them meet those standards, but they are the ones that are watching the whole BA. And that gets into, frequency and all kinds of things. Eventually, if we don't have enough load, we're going to start tripping relays because we're under frequency, and that's all electrical conditions. But really, if we start lagging in our supply, the BA is going to pick up to a certain point.
And what does that stand for?
What's that?
The BA.
Oh, balancing authority.
Balancing authority.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, balancing authority. And they're separate from, are they a government agency or quasi-government agency, or?
It depends. So our BA here, our balancing authority here is PSCO, Public Service South of Colorado. We also, in our northern system, our balancing authority is WAPA, which is a government authority. So it depends. It could be a private company or a government agency.
How many balancing authorities are there nationwide about?
Just
Or
in
even in
the,
Colorado or in your service area, or
so in the Western Interconnect, I believe there's 30 or 40.
30 or 40?
Which is a lot. And it would have to be, so like in the Eastern Interconnect, there's a lot less. So when they get into RTOs, like SPP is the RTO and the balancing authority for almost, I have a slide that shows that, but it's a very large chunk of the United States, spanning several states. The Western Interconnect is just a little different, where they, for whatever reason, are split up into quite a lot of EAs.
I have a question. Yeah. Okay, you said during the pandemic, you operated with one what?
One, we call them operator or generation dispatcher.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So now you're back to two?
Well, we've always had two. What I said is that one had to be on site to do his job. We had one person working remotely. So
Okay,
there's,
so you, in actuality, did have two.
in actuality, we did have two all the time. Yep, it did not diminish our workload. It's just the one person, because of regulation, could work at home.
Thank you.
Yep. priorities as a department, this is in order, really pretty simple, but I like how simple it is. It's reliability first, and then it's the lowest cost resources, lowest cost to serve our customers. So reliability, that's where PAGS comes in. That's how we choose to dispatch and operate those plants. There may be times where we would have the choice to shut down a unit and make a purchase that would save our customers money, but it isn't the greatest thing for reliability of the system. And we weigh those risks and may choose to operate the unit rather than shut it down. But that's our first priority. We do that in conjunction with several agreements with other companies, and then even internally with what we call our reliability center. So the folks that take care of the transmission department, we're in constant communication with them. If they're the ones monitoring frequency, voltage, and they see, things that we can't, and maybe would contact us to start a unit, shut a unit down based on what they see.
Is reliability a measure of loss of service or loss of equipment?
And probably several different ways to measure reliability. When I think of reliability from this context, it's losing customers. It's not providing.
Losing service to customers.
Losing service to customers. Yeah. But, that's a good point. Reliability at the power plant could be keeping all their units available. Well, they could have a unit that's not available, and we're still reliable. We're still serving the load. We have many different options, but there are different ways to look at it. So lowest cost to serve customers, that gets into whether we choose to operate our units or make purchases. So there's, we know how much it costs to run our units and what that means in $1 per megawatt to our customers. If we can purchase under that, we do that as long as it does not affect reliability.
So if you buy power from somewhere else, who you buy from, how is their power provided? Is it natural gas? What is it?
It depends, and it is not designated. Once it comes to us, it's just energy. It could be coal, could be renewable, could be gas. It could be that the company selling it to us has nothing to do with generating it at all. They might have just bought it from someone else and are selling it to us. It could just be all on paper. There's several different ways that we can buy, being mainly firm and non-firm. So non-firm meaning that we are responsible if that goes away. So we back it up with our own generators. Firm being that then the company who's selling it to us is responsible. If that, for whatever reason, goes away, they're responsible to either pay for it or replace it somehow.
Greenwood does a lot of business with Black Hills on a day-to-day basis, so, yeah, so that we have a good relationship with them on the GDPM side.
We may buy from Gooseman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
How do you acquire the price information? Be able to determine.
we have subscriptions for like a market indicator of what the prices are at certain trading hubs. But then specific to a purchase that is over the phone and instant messages with other companies, with other counterparts.
So it's real-time price data that you're making your decision.
Yes, and so, trading hub somewhere could say that market energy is $50. Well, someone could have some energy that they can't get rid of, and so, price may be 20. And that's all negotiated over the phone or instant messages. But just because the trading hub says it's 50 doesn't mean it's 50. It could go the other way. It could be we set more constraints here than the market is showing, and it becomes more expensive. Another thing here with lowest cost, what we see as lowest cost serving our customers is then our ability then to market our units. So if the price of energy goes the other way and it's more expensive than our units, first of all, we're going to run our units to provide the lowest cost to our customers. And then if we have the opportunity and enough in the hole, we can run the units and make the sale the other way. And that is a credit to customers through their ECA. So that is a benefit to customers.
that 80%?
90% to
90%.
customers.
So 90% of it goes back to the customer,
Yes,
10% to you guys.
yes.
Run their expense.
And if there's a loss, we're fully responsible. It's 100% ours.
How would you have a loss?
So say we sold energy today for tomorrow, something happened in the market, and all of a sudden, it's gonna cost us more to serve our sale. We still have to serve it.
So it's a 24-hour issue.
Yes. Yep.
Weather and such are kind
Yes,
of known well enough, and price of gas and all that.
yes. Normally they're known well enough and we can make a educated decision when making that sale. We don't try to lose money, but it happens. It's a bigger thing.
So do we only sell firm energy then?
No, most of our purchases at sales are firm, but we do sell and purchase non-firm, and there's a price difference. So the JDA, the Joint Dispatch Agreement that we have with Piesco, Colorado Springs, and PRPA, assume you're familiar with that a little bit. Flat River, yeah. So that's an agreement we have to where we have basically an automated way to sell energy. And those are all non-firm purchases.
So on the energy cost adjustment and the 90%, 10%, so is the 10% a corporate decision? Is that where that number comes from? And the real question I'm getting to is, why is it a fixed percentage rather than a fixed fee?
That is approved by the Public Utilities Commission of Colorado. So historically, how that ever came to, I do not know. I can tell you we have different agreements with different states on those percentages.
I believe Excel has something similar. I don't know if it's 90-10, but they have a similar agreement with the sharing mechanism.
So it's to incentivize us to be aggressive and make sales and then be able to have a way to share that.
Sorry, can you go back and say the piece again about the 100%? Is it your risk?
If at the end of the year it's netted, and we've lost money marketing energy, it's 100% covered by the sheriff.
Okay. How does that relate to Storm Uri and the additional rate tariff? Wasn't Black Hills selling energy before Storm Uri?
That's correct. That's included in my testimony. And that was, we had a large loss during Storm Uri.
Okay.
And that if at the end of the year, if we wouldn't have made that up, that would have been 100% covered by the company.
Okay.
By the end of the year, we dug ourselves out of a hole and netted a positive marketing margin. But if that wouldn't have happened, we would have been on the hook for the full. So when we use the term customers a little loosely, but who we consider our customers, both internally, and you notice the two at the end are third-party customers that we dispatch. We do these same services for the city of Gillette and MDU. That's more up in our northern system. So the first four are internal entities. Colorado Electric would be who would serve Canyon City. So to me, the reason I show this is, to me, this has two benefits to Canyon City. The first one is just the expertise that we have by doing all this business. So we don't just do this in Colorado Electric, we do it for two other utilities internally. We do it for third parties, and in doing that, we have over 50 counterparties that we are contracted to do business with, Guzman being one of them. So we are in the market buying and selling with these entities for you and for 5 other companies. And the reason that makes a difference is, just as an example, if we were doing business with one counterparty all day for some, for one of our utilities up north, and then we all of a sudden had a need down here, we've been working with those folks all day. And they can, that's an easier conversation than a cold call. But we haven't talked to them, never needed them all day, and all of a sudden we need help down south. So just has us in the market, has us watching things more closely and being involved to a greater extent. Second thing this does is that we share our expenses across all these customers too. It's split by capacity that we dispatch. So there's I believe there's over around 16, close to 1,600 megawatts that we dispatch over all these entities. Colorado Electric is 680 of that. So that gets split. So that means that Colorado Electric is responsible for about 45% of our expenses. Now, I said earlier, we're a department of 25 people. That wouldn't mean that we could do it with 12 if there was just Colorado Electric. So surely we could shave a few positions and become a little leaner if we didn't have all these customers, but it's not a one-for-one. So I believe that's another place where that provides value by us having other entities that we work with.
Okay, so it's Black Hills Corp is selling to all these entities? Is that who's selling? Not Black Hills Energy, it's Black Hills Corp.
Well, so now what this is our department provides these same services for these 6 different entities.
Services as in, Generation,
that,
okay.
power market.
and do they all pay the same price for that generation, or are they all negotiated differently?
So they pay for our services based on the ratio of of their capacity that they own.
Okay, so Colorado Electric pays 45% of
Yeah,
whatever.
and that's based on that they have that much generation
Okay.
tags and wind farms.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Another thing, we have a lot of systems that help us do this. So I talked about that subscription to a trading platform, all those expenses, that doesn't, we don't get to cut those in half. We only serve Colorado Electric. So the more people we're serving really helps divide that up. Yeah, go ahead.
Not a few. Since you self-powered Black Hills. So I would like to know, are you in the same situation as far as you buy from multi different sources?
Yes.
Do you know where most, or what provides most of your energy, the source of the energy as far as?
This is all very similar to Black Hills. It's a mix, depends on who you buy from. But each tag, which is a basically electronic signature from where it's generated to where it's delivered, has a list of that source on there. So you almost always know where it's generated. If we buy it from Black Hills, they might give us one of the wind projects. It might be a Black Hills system, which is all their system. Buy from Excel, they could list Comanche 3, or they could list system. So I mean, you can still see where the power, at least system-wide, where it's coming from. You might not be able to point to the exact generator, but you can see where it's coming from. And we buy from the same parties that they do. I mean, we're buying and sell all amongst us. There's 30 or 40, 50 counterparties that we deal with as well in this area.
This is just a little depiction of our system. Lower left is Colorado Electric, just showing that's that Excel or Piesco BA balancing authority. That's the bigger circle surrounding COE. So that's who we get balancing authority services from. That's WAPA for our other 2 utilities. This is just generally showing our interconnection and how all that works. So CCW is Canyon City West, over there on the left side. So that's your substation. That's where we could bring energy in. So this is how we interact with Guzman and others and buy and sell energy. Difference there though is that in the blue, we have our wind farms and we have the power plants. So to me, that's what we provide. We provide steel on the ground. And if those market purchases aren't available, if they're incredibly expensive, if they just altogether go away, we can operate tags and serve the customers of Colorado Electric. Another point too, if we're talking about making purchases, we do that based on credit we have with other companies. Because of the size of Black Hills Energy, we're able to provide a substantial amount of credit to make more purchases when that is required or needed. So that's a benefit we have that a smaller company can't do. They may have to prepay, they may have to provide some other form of credit. But being a large utility, having several other businesses allows us to have a substantial amount of credit with these other counterparties.
On that diagram, you mentioned CCW's Canyon City West. Is that the one that's here in town?
Yes.
And then what's the West Station?
West Station is another substation. I can't tell you physically where that's at.
South, right? I think it's south because next to ARPA.
I do not. I can tell you Bush Ranch, obviously it's Walsenburg, Peters in Pueblo.
I think West Station is actually north of Pueblo, kind of east of Pueblo West, because the West Station substation is gonna feed this entire transmission line that we're running to the north.
So is it west? I didn't hear you, John. It's Pueblo West area.
Yeah, east of the Pueblo West area. So, I mean, it's probably technically in Pueblo West. But
What can't you follow? East of west.
The next few slides, I won't read everything up here, but just gives you an idea of what our forward trading department does. So within our department, there's 4 individuals in forward trading. And so as an example, today, this morning, they're trading for tomorrow. So they're purchasing and selling forward blocks of energy to set us up for tomorrow, either to plan on running our units or plan on making a purchase. So they're setting up the day for real time.
Question, so you're looking 24 hours and more in advance, and Storm Uri's barreling down on us in February, 13 months ago. How far do you recall by any chance how far you saw that in advance, you saw that coming?
Unfortunately, yes, I remember that
You
pretty
do.
well.
3, 4, 5 days, 6 days?
No, it's probably, it
More like a
kind
little
of all settled in on Friday. We knew what was all coming together. I would say, early in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, we probably started to get an idea. Really, I think because the reason it was such a short time is that even it being that cold wasn't an issue about how much loads were. I don't believe we even set a winter peak, and we're still 100 megawatts short of what we do in the summer. So it wasn't an issue of not having generator capacity to serve that. It's actually really an issue with how expensive natural gas got.
That's what.
Yeah. So one benefit we did have going into that, and then I filed testimony related to Storm Uri. It's all public. But we make annual and monthly purchases of natural gas. And so that gas was purchased at, say, less than $3. And but it was only about half of what we needed. So the other half was incredibly expensive. But that situation could have been much worse if we wouldn't have those monthly and annual purchases there to be able to generate and serve our own customer load. And so, that situation, if you're relying on just making energy purchases, then you're going to be in a situation where you don't have that natural gas purchased on a monthly, annual basis. and you're relying strictly on the market, and you have no generation fallback. So that's the benefit that PAGS gave us throughout that.
So if your split was roughly 50-50 of contracted gas versus market price gas, and you ended up, and we ended up with a $23 million bill out of that, something like that, extra. What's the takeaway for the future? Is it to do more contracted gas, less market, or is it just, that's a one-off and we're still going to stick with 50-50?
We are actually doing studies to look at how we can set ourselves up better. We are still definitely doing annual and monthly purchases. It is a thing where, anything we do, if we purchased 100% of the gas, we would have paid, you would have paid that $23 million over a longer period. But we could definitely do that. We could purchase all the gas it takes to just.
You mean long-term purchase, or I don't understand. When you say purchase, do you mean long-term purchase or market price purchase?
Long-term purchase. So we could go in a month and say, Storm Uri happened last year. We're worried about that. We're going to buy all the gas we need. We're going to run our generators all month. And not that then takes away that opportunity for us to buy cheaper energy when it's available. So it is a way to offset the risk. You do then have, what you're going to pay, but you're losing out on the opportunity to make the market purchases and provide cheaper energy. So it's a balance, and we still definitely do long-term purchases, but we don't do it to cover our entire load.
Does Black Hills still have the gas storage?
There is some gas storage in Colorado. None of that really helped in Storm Uri. We are looking at other options too, just ways to store gas, possibly making our units dual fuel, so we could burn diesel or something else during the time when we're not so reliant on natural gas. So definitely looking at options to help negate that.
But dual fuel, you only have fuel oil, and that's like 20 or something, 20, 30 megawatts of diesel generators, right?
Well, yes.
So what could you fire your gas generators with?
It's possible through a capital investment to make those gas turbines run on diesel.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So Don, on the long-term gas purchases, what happens if you purchase them?
You could either sell it back, you could book it out, but you're responsible. If it's a firm purchase, you're responsible for that energy, whether you take it or whether you end up taking it and selling it somewhere else.
So essentially, the contract requires the gas to be used somewhere. Either that, or you pay for the gas and you don't get it.
Sorry.
Is that right?
That is right. I do have to be thinking energy, but the same goes for natural gas. So we make that gas purchase, and we have that. We carry an imbalance, a natural gas imbalance. So we don't use it. They start ticking up. They track that daily. We start having a positive imbalance. At the end of the month, they will, and every gas supplier is different, but normally it's at the end of the month, you have to, if you have a positive balance, you have to sell that gas back to the gas company. And normally it's at so what would be the worst for you? It'd be the lowest price, right?
Yeah.
It'd be the lowest price of the month.
Right.
That gas.
Gotcha.
Don, what is the NERC and the FERC and the WECC stand for?
FERC, NERC, and WEC, those are compliance.
Can you say what they are? I know
Fed-
Federal
FERC,
Energy
yeah.
Regulatory Commission. but I
Commission,
don't
yeah,
know the
so
other.
that's FERC. FERC then delegates some responsibility to NERC, National Electric Reliability Corporation. They're the entity that has governing authority, and then NERC further delegates some things to WEC, the Western Electric
Coordinating.
Coordinating Council. There's a lot of that. Thank you.
We're all supposed to be experts, right?
Yeah.
Don, I can't keep questions in my mind.
Go ahead.
So what portion of your generation on a yearly basis you do yourself versus what you buy?
I would have to, may have to look back on that. I don't think I have that. It's, I would looked at it recently. I would say, I'm open to it, it's around 20% that we purchase, and 80% that we generate.
Well, but that depends because PAGS is considered actually purchase.
That's a good point. So half,
Sorry, half of PAGS. The IPP portion is purchase power.
correct.
And therefore, it's about 55 or 60% of the purchase power is actually PAGS. Is the IPP, sorry, because PAGS is two things. So it's a pretty substantial portion that you purchase. You purchase more than half of your power because of the IPP.
You're right. When I said 80-20, the 80% would included bags. You're right.
So I think it's more like 60-40 or even less. I think you generate. I think it's more like, well, I used to know, I forgot.
No, you're right. So we do consider that our self-generation, but you're right, it's a purchase from another entity that they're bags.
Oh, it's a big purchase because it costs 75 to 85 bucks a megawatt hour versus all of your other stuff from non-PAGs are averaged in 2021, it averaged 21 bucks. So you guys did a good job of buying low from others, but your own generation from the IPP is 75 to 85 bucks.
Yeah.
That was exactly the question I was going to ask about. If a priority is lowest cost resource to customers, then how do you factor what Steve just said?
So the majority of the PAGS contract is what we consider a capacity contract. That meaning a lot of that $70 or $80 is paid whether the unit runs or not. We consider that as sunk cost. And what I say when we're providing the lowest cost energy, that's just looking at the variable cost of running PAGS IPP for the contract units.
I didn't quite follow that, but I'm working on it.
Okay, so up to say, let's call it $80. Sorry, this gentleman, Steve said, which is probably very accurate. Let's say $50 of that is capacity. The contract with our IPP pays for capacity, and that is paid whether the unit runs or not. It's based on availability, not on energy generated.
For the fixed asset. You're paying for the fixed asset. You're paying for that big investment.
Yes, in contrast to assets that we own, where they're part of our rate base. And so you consider that the same way, it's just a different way of paying for that asset. That's you on the ground.
In 2020, your demand charge from PAGS was 46 million bucks, 45 and a half. Your energy charge was 38 million bucks. That adds up to 83 million of the total purchase power of 106 million. Sorry, yeah, 106 million. That's from your FERC one,
Yep,
FERC Form 1.
so the 46 million
46,
is capacity.
45.7 million is for capacity.
Yep.
So they pay that whether they use a kilowatt hour or not, or megawatt hour.
Just with the assets you own, you own that asset, you're paying for that asset, whether you operate it or not.
And because is it more, is the IPP more efficient than the Black Hills, see the Colorado Electric one?
Yes.
It is. Therefore, it makes sense to use it more. Since you paid the demand charge anyway, it makes sense to use it more. And that's what was confusing me in the decision-making process. I didn't figure that out until I was on the tour. So I appreciated the tour on that front in particular.
A lot of we're talking about even this next slide.
I think we're accomplishing our mission, connecting the dots.
Yeah.
So, that's the point.
So this is the peak day for Colorado Electric back in 2019. And so if you look at the colors here, the wind is green. The next chunk there is a blue, that's the PAG's IPP generation. The other little maybe purple is the units 1 and 2, and then orange are purchases. So what you can see as we go through the day here, what happened, we had quite a bit of wind and we were able to purchase energy cheap. So we actually had the units 1 and 2 shut off. There's a little sliver there, but for most of the morning until 9 o'clock, we weren't running those units at all. As Steve said, IPP units are more efficient, so we were running those units. Then as the day went on, most likely what happened is this was a heavy load day it was a record for us, it was for most of Colorado. So energy got really expensive. And so instead of continuing to have to make that purchase, we were able to fire from generation, which would have been cheaper. And then we were even able to, the light there that goes the opposite way, we actually been able to sell into the market for some of those hours. You can see what we have, how much wind we have there when we set the peak. So to me, this really really shows what PAGS does for you. And we were talking about energy purchases and looking at the whole year, and that being $20. Well, that's all an average over the whole year. And during these peak hours, we could have been paying over $100 megawatt hour for energy. We generate it based on gas costs for less than 50 with their own units. So,
But you have almost enough generation, self-generation to be able to meet that load, so you don't have to buy.
yeah, we have more than 422. Yeah. So we don't have to buy. That's right.
That's kind of a requirement, though, right? You have to have capacity to serve your load, your peak load.
As a utility, yes. Yep.
What's the margin requirement? 12, 15?
It's 15% right now. It's not really a set requirement. It's more of what, it's a discussion between the Public Utility Commission and the company. I believe Excel's last ERP, they used 18%. It's actually only going up because of renewable.
Energy resource plan.
Sorry. Yeah, try to.
The planning process.
Thanks, John. Any questions on this slide?
It looks like you had a long peak. Looks like from 2 or 3 to
Yes.
8.
Pretty flat.
That's a long peak.
Yeah.
It's a hot day in July. I think we're familiar with those down here.
So we don't call it out any different here, but it's most likely that the economy energy purchases there are actually JDA purchases, so that joint dispatch agreement that I was talking about with the utilities that allows us to make those cheap purchases on a real-time basis. We can see the price indicator and back our units down and start buying as soon as we see that go a certain direction. There's a significant amount of time when it is zero. When Excel has so much wind that they can't get rid of, and we back back our units down are able to purchase the energy for nothing. Say purchase for nothing, just get. So they have dispatchable generation, and we're able to respond to those price indicators, and as soon as that price starts heading up, we reach a certain point, we fire our own generation and start pushing the other way. I had a few other slides, but they're really pretty high level things. Reserve sharing groups, we're part of the Northwest Power Pool. We take that service from Excel. But what the reserve sharing group does is if we have a unit that trips, we can call on this reserve group to fill in for 60 minutes. So we have a unit trip, we call up and say we need help for 60 minutes. They generate for us. We do pay for that. And then that gives us that 60 minutes to correct ourselves and figure out what we're going to do after that. And that goes the opposite way too. That's why the sharing group, someone else has an emergency and we can be called on to pick up and generate more than we are. To help cover that. This is the third regional entities. That's where we got WEC. So that's all of the West, including Canada, a small piece of Mexico.
There's someone online, right? Did you see something in the chat? There's a question.
Any solar?
So currently in Colorado, John can probably answer this better than me, there's solar gardens and a lot of behind the meter. We do not have any major solar fields now. We are in the process of building, through a contract, 200 megawatts of solar. I believe in 2024 is when they'll come online. So that's part of our clean energy plan.
You didn't need me for that. That's correct. But just for reference, I think, community solar gardens account for about, I want to say 10 or 12 megawatts. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's close to that.
You know how much you have in distributed in rooftop, commercial?
I
residential?
actually do. I don't have it with me, but I want to tell you that it's, I think,
How much?
it might be 40. I'll check. Steve, I can get back to you. That might be wrong. Don't let me misspeak. Let me just find out.
That would be very big. I think it's more like 4 or 5. Yeah, it's
Actually,
4 or 5.
the number that I've been told lines up with John.
Really? Wow.
And
But I'll let him confirm too.
Yeah.
We can work it out.
Yeah, and I can tell you our renewable core energy manager is on the PTO, don't see until Wednesday, so I'll ask him Wednesday.
Yeah, I was surprised as well when I heard that. So that's something we don't, all we see that as is less load. We don't see that as generating.
That's load that goes away at night.
Yes.
I'm sorry, is that full service territory or just Kansas City?
That would be Colorado,
Oh, Colorado?
Colorado Electric.
Colorado
our
Electric.
system.
That still would be low. I mean, very high. I still think it's high for a distributed gen. That's a lot of rooftops
That's bigger than Bush Ranch.
Oh,
You know,
40,
I mean, that's.
you're saying 40 megawatts.
across all of Colorado.
Oh, okay, I thought 40 units.
And
Okay,
I will
sorry.
verify for you, because I don't know.
That would be impressive.
That is.
When I moved here, I think it was 2. That was 10 years, 10, 12 years.
So reliability coordinators, this is another service we take from Excel. And what the reliability coordinator does, it sits over several VAs. He kind of watchdog, watches transmission, and just another layer of reliability for the electric system. We do take that from SPP. That is the same folks that are on the RTO, but it's not an RTO. It's providing for us. that's all I had. There's been a lot of talk around RTOs and regional transmission organizations. We are currently not in one. We are moving about this time next year, we'll be joining SPP Weiss, which that is not an RTO, it's an imbalance market. So it'll be a lot like the JDA, but it'll be more sophisticated than the JDA and will include more partners. So what we have now in the JDA is great. It's only going to get better. We're going to add what's already operating, and WAPA's part of it. Basin Electric is part of it. So it's all the way, Wyoming, South Dakota, really our northern utilities are basically part of it. So more partners, more access to the cheap generation.
So question there, there's the eastern grid, the western grid, and ERCOT. Between the eastern and western grids, I thought that was a pretty small sort of hourglass funnel of ability to transmit power between the two, in part because they're not quite on the same frequency or some, as I recall, something like so. So you can't really, something that you might generate in South Dakota, you can't ship to Colorado or vice versa.
We can ship to Colorado
You can ship to
because
Colorado.
we are on the Western Interconnect.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, a little sliver of South.
Oh, okay, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But so my point being, or it's really a question, has that increased? Has the ability to transmit power across that east-west grid line, has that increased over time much or?
No, I mean, that's all a function of DC, they're called DC ties. And what's the newest DC tie?
Rapid City.
Is it? So that's 20 years old, right?
Then you get Rapid City DC tie, then you have Stegall tie, which is kind of right down there between Nebraska and Colorado, then Sydney tie, which is over at Sydney, Nebraska, then Lamar. Lamar's older than,
Okay.
Lamar is like east of here.
So no, for your question, no, it has not increased significantly.
I don't think there is.
anticipate that. I don't think it's-
So it's like the American League on the right-hand side with a designated hitter, and it's on the left-hand side, it's the National League with the pitcher hitter. So I mean, they just, when they get together and play each other, they gotta, who's home
On first, right?
stadium in. I mean, it's weird stuff. I don't understand why we can't wheel all the way around, but we can.
It's a frequency issue.
Yeah, I know, it's just, but where did that come from? I
Right,
mean, that's
right.
kind of stupid.
Yeah.
In the world of an industrial efficiency expert, they go, whack.
Well, you gotta look at where all the loads are, right? I mean, even the west is kind of like the donut. I mean, you got kind of the middle there, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people, and kind of power flows, everything flows pretty much this way to California. So if you think of it, if it's all connected, you'd have everything going across, if it was able to, from say Washington Hydro, some of the coal in Montana where there's less load, into Minneapolis. And then come in, maybe down to Denver, a higher population area, but there's really nothing in Wyoming, South Dakota, northwestern Colorado, so it's kind of a hole, right? So you have a lot of constraints, you have a lot of transmission issues.
Especially with something like wind, in the north-south, going through the Dakotas down to the Texas Panhandle. I mean, there's some pretty powerful wind going in there, and yet you have these constraints that strike me as odd
It's not well.
and institutionalized. Can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
SPP is a trading partner. We do buy from SPP. We both, mainly three ties, Rapid City, Sydney, and then Lamar. Lamar is where that would take, supplying Colorado Electric. But yeah, so we take advantage. We can see, we watch, we see a big wind gas coming in, with SPP is going to be cheap. We take advantage of that. But that swings the other way. I think I was told during the plant tour was brought up during Storm Uri. I got a screenshot on my computer. It was $50,000 a megawatt hour from SPP.
50,000 versus 20
Yeah.
or 80.
Yeah.
It's just like gold plate.
Yeah.
Free enterprise.
Colorado during the storm area was a couple hundred though, right? I mean, it was 80 or 90, it was like a few hundred, wasn't it? What is it? The real-time pricing.
Real-time pricing, in Colorado during Storm Uri was probably close to 2,000.
2,000 also.
Yeah. And it's really driven off of the price of gas and gas.
Sure.
On the gas.
Still pretty good arbitrage, 2,000 to 50,000.
Yeah.
You know, I seen California ISO on there. I was reading something yesterday, I don't remember where I saw it, where they were bragging about either a particular day or maybe it was multiple days where they were getting by far the vast majority from renewables. And I just wondered if you could say more about that. And to me, it's like, you know, maybe the mix is what saves us, is because if we're so reliant on gas or any one thing, then that's when the market kills us.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had any comment.
Sure, I'll start off by saying, we talked a little bit about Storm Uri. There was obviously blackouts in Texas, rolling blackouts in SVP. Rapid City sits right on the line, and we had employees that are on the other side of the line that were having blackouts, and we did not. So that's what my team does, is take care of, provide, serve the load, and did an excellent job through Storm Uri. But as far as markets, I think that is a big consideration when looking at a market, is resource variability and geographically how much you can spread it out. So, that's one benefit of a market is, the sun's not always shining right here, but, we could take advantage of the sun shining somewhere else when it comes to solar, the wind blowing other places. And what they call it geographic diversity, it allows you to take advantage of that and allows us to overgenerate when there's a lot of wind here, and it allows us to take advantage of someone else overgenerating when the wind is blowing somewhere else.
So a lot of that, I assume, is dependent on the transmission and infrastructure.
Sure, yeah, definitely constraints, but that's another thing an RTO does, is look at constraints and look at building transmission. And if there's several years planning that they do to try to avoid constraints and make some better.
I just have to make a comment while I think of it about ERCOT. I don't blame the storm. I blame regulation in Texas for what.
Yeah.
And the fact that they haven't fixed, from what I've read, they haven't fixed their problems down there. I don't think the way they're organized is going to fix the problems. And so we're always at risk of that happening again. And I don't know what we do about that. But I just think it's important to know that they're not winterizing their gas lines or whatever else they need to winterize. They're not doing it.
So how often does a storm like that happen?
It's going to happen again.
Oh, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm asking, how long does a storm like, or how often does a storm like that happen?
I wanted to say that it's been one in a 100-year storm or something. I don't disagree with you that it won't happen again.
Oh,
But a large part of that too is that it wasn't that it was a negative 20 in Pueblo. It's cold.
Yeah.
But if it would have just been negative 20 in Pueblo, it wouldn't have been a big deal at all. It was the fact that it was negative 20 north to south, and that it then went east and did the same thing. That geographically, that it was everywhere. That was the issue.
But here's another key thing, and it goes to what Emily's saying. Texas has had 3 events in the last 10 years.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't have to be Storm Uri size
Right.
to screw up what's going on in Texas, to knock them offline. So your point is well taken. It isn't just that it's a 100-year event, it's how resistant to what kind of storm levels is the Texas gas distribution system and production system and processing. From at the wellhead to the processing plant was, I think, where a lot of the problems were. They're not winterized. They did work some on the power plant issues, I think, over the year. I think ERCOT required something.
We're at their mercy unless we figure out some way to not do that. So
And we are looking how not to be candid, we are looking at, that's what dual fuel would be for us, or some kind of storage that we can control. That would solve that. We wouldn't be dependent on wells freezing in Texas.
Well, and it's really about, I would assume it's about the peaks. When the price of gas got ridiculous, you don't want to be a complete victim of that. So it's, having a lot of things in place to avoid being the victim of the extremes, especially when you didn't create the extremes. That, it happened because the way Texas regulates power.
Thank you for that, Don. That was very interesting.
Very much so, thank you.
And appreciate Black Hills making it available to us because, yeah, as you can see, we have a lot of questions. And I think that we learned some things here today, so that's really great.
If you have any other questions, John knows how to get a hold of me, or you can reach out directly to me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see if I have some business cards. I don't travel, just started traveling.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll get stocked up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we move on with our agenda, let's take a 5 or 10 minute break.
Mayor Smith on. Right. Anyway, so Renewable Advantage was proposed back in 2018, specifically just to save customers money. We saw the bid that Excel got back. And we said we would like some of that. So we went out and bid 200 megawatts of renewable energy solely for the purpose of saving customers money, and that's how it was presented to the PUC, and they approved us going outside of our energy resource plan to do that. And we got bids back that set the low in the market in Colorado at like $17 a megawatt hour. So we proceeded with that plan. We've been working through that, building transmission line, got a purchase power agreement in place with the developer. And back in January, the developer filed their intent to terminate our purchase power agreement, saying that they couldn't deliver on the contract because of inflationary pressures around materials and otherwise. So we have been working very, very closely with that developer to see if we can save that project, because now we have a second reason for needing that solar, which is the Clean Energy Plan in Colorado. We're required to reduce our carbon emissions to 80%, and this would go a long way to getting us there. And so we need the energy anyway, so we're working through that with the developer. We will only propose to continue with this project if it's neutral or saves customers dollars. But the way that the prices are in today's market, it would likely be at best customer neutral. So we're working through that process. I'm hopeful we can save the project.
You could go to a whole different kind of system of distributed solar, right? And not penalize customers.
Well,
Very expensive. You're not
Very
getting that
expensive.
17.
The utility scale is cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm
and
sorry,
really,
as
we
a-
don't have the footprint that Excel does. Like, we don't have the same issue, right? They have lots and lots of rooftops. We don't have as many.
Right.
So,
And it also costs more. I mean, I'm a solar proponent, have been forever. I've had, since 2003, I've had PV on whatever building I'm in. And since 1986. And it is expensive. Even when you get tax credits, it's expensive. It's hard to justify. You have to be committed. Whereas at utility scale, you can save money.
like,
You can save money. I'm looking at you, Doug. I'm looking at you, Doug. You can save money. That's why I asked John a question.
you have to make it to save. I don't make that much. But anyway,
Yeah.
my brother works for PG&E, and I talked to him about solar.
Oh, geez.
And he says he'll never pay for solar.
Utility scale does. That's why they don't, that's why they're investing in it.
They're not, right?
They wouldn't
Utility
invest
scale
in it,
does.
yeah.
Rooftop is different.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, rooftop, what is the return? 10 years, something like that? I mean, it's very
It's
similar.
still, there is a return
Yeah.
because of the tax credit.
Well, I'd be 85 years old.
Yeah.
That makes it-
It all depends on what the utility rates are and everything too,
Yeah.
that's how you
Yeah.
justify it.
Okay, let's jump back on our meeting schedule here, but I did have another question. John, maybe, this is from Black Hills. We had a resident that asked this question. What will happen to a customer's bank solar credit power credits, their bank solar power credits, if the city switches away from Black Hills?
Wow.
So, and you don't, if you don't know that, you know, you can take that as a question.
Yeah, I am happy to take that as a question. That's a pretty theoretical.
Yeah, it is.
I would imagine at some point they can get cashed out. That's their option today, right? They can cash out of those bank credits, so if the city decided to go that way before they switch, then cash out. But I'll check, John. I think
Okay.
that's kind of my flippant answer, but it's probably true.
Okay,
As a customer, I'll just tell you what the answer that I think it is, and that is, there's a Y in the road. And you either get a payment every year or you bank. If you go for bank, I don't believe you can go back to payment. And therefore, at the end of the day, I think you may be stuck with holding them in the bank. When I say you, I mean me. And that's, you know, that was the gamble I took. The reason I did that was that power purchased in January and February was because I wasn't producing as much as I was using, ended up costing me more than going the banking route. So I went to banking. But I would think you would lose it. The analogy would be Kit Carson Electric. When Kit Carson left Tri-State, there were, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you had investments built up as capital credits built up that I believe were lost when they left the system.
The exit fee was reduced by the.
The exit, okay.
You could always negotiate something like that with the, I
You
would think, depending on what the future looked like.
You could,
You could
absolutely.
agree to do something for this. It's not-
okay. The other thing that, well, we're gonna kind of do new business here first. The other thing that was brought up as a question is evidently there's a poll going around, a link to a poll. Unfortunately, the city's security policies will not let me access the link while I'm using their Wi-Fi, which is all right. It's good. That's good. But I didn't follow up, and so so I think the general discussion is that if there's a poll about energy going away, that could be from anywhere. That could be from Core, that could be from Black Hills, it could be from Guzman. But the question is, you know, does the city, does our committee need to look at that? Or is there some action we should take or should not take? Emily, you kind of had the concern. What?
Oh, someone just contacted me saying, I got a text about, and I don't have the wording in front of me, but it was something like asking questions in relation to something going on with the ballot, an election. So I don't know if Black Hills is doing this with a sample of people or.
Ballot
It had
related to
John's
electrical?
name on it. It was from John, right? It was
Yeah, that's-
somebody, John who, you know,
Yeah,
it didn't happen.
Yeah.
just-
I was like, wow.
Yeah, somebody named John.
You know, you asked, should we pay attention to it? If we don't know who put it out there, my personal opinion is don't pay attention.
So I have the language here that you forwarded, Emily.
Okay.
It says, "Hi, this is John. I'm asking you to please take our short poll about electric service and issues you will be voting on in Canyon City. Your participation is needed in the hazard."
So is that anything you know about, John?
I do. We are doing a baseline research poll about how folks are thinking about utilities here in Canyon City in a variety of different things.
But the wording of that makes it sound like the election is a done deal.
Well, I
That's a
had
push poll.
I will tell you, I have not seen that language. I have not seen that language.
Well, and it says issues you will be voting on. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But that's.
Well, it's like.
misleading.
Well, we will.
It's
Are
like
we-
well, at
Might,
some point in
will.
time,
Yes.
but,
Are we not gonna be voting on this thing? I mean,
oh, of course.
we don't
Oh,
make the
sure.
decision.
Franchise,
They do.
eventually, yeah.
Right, whenever there's a decision to make. We're
Yeah.
not there yet.
no, we're not.
That's correct, and we realize that, city council, I'm sure will realize that too. But so, my take on it is, if people want to poll away, we have that ability too. City council
Yes.
does, because we, not we as the committee, but we as city council
Right.
Right.
have that ability.
I would just be concerned if I were the company and the wording is misleading, that you're not gonna, it's garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. If you're misleading whoever you're polling, then how is that useful information if you get that?
Now, the poll that was done for the recreation center was positive, and the vote came out. It went just exactly the opposite. So
Yeah,
polls are whoever writes them, they can get it to.
Sure.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
take polls because the person that's writing them a lot of times has their own agenda
All right.
and they know exactly what they want to have as the
right.
key points. And
So they
that's how
write
the
the
whole thing
poll
is
to
written.
that.
Yeah, that's how the poll is written. And that's my opinion.
That's why it's called a push poll, right? Pushing
Exactly.
people
Right,
in the direction.
right.
Okay. So next, Kurt very kindly again, wrote up an evaluation criteria for electric utility service for Kingman City. It was a draft. Emily had some comments on it. I had some comments. I put my comments in a red line version, so we can see what I was adding or suggesting.
I had one thing.
Oh, yeah, what?
Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know some things. The rural cooperative utility under profits to owner, it says yes in the form of lower rates, and then you scratched out no.
Right,
But if I'm not,
Is that in the red?
yeah,
Okay, that's John's.
yeah,
okay, but if I'm not mistaken, sometimes rural REAs give back rebate checks, do they not?
They
To
call
their
it something
customers?
Capital credits.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
okay.
it's real money.
So the answer's not complete. It should say or lower, or direct.
Okay, all right,
Right? Does that fix it?
I would think so. Because I know I've talked to people that,
You get
are
a check.
with San Isabel and they get a check. So, okay.
Right.
All right, that is clarification. And also then, I may have missed this in the last 2 years. What fees to Colorado PUC? They, down there at the bottom. Colorado, the utilities all pay a fee to Colorado PUC to support PUC. Is that what it means? Fees to Colorado PUC.
I thought,
What's
when
that?
I was going through all this earlier, I think that you guys do pay a fee to PUC.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah, you do.
I'm pretty sure you
It's in
do.
the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay,
You
but
got a
that's
big
to
staff.
support the work of the PUC?
I don't know.
Probably pay for regulatory.
Yeah. At
Okay,
least according to
so
your
like
FERC
Colorado
Form 1.
pays CDPHE, okay.
Actually,
That's what.
Yeah,
it actually shows a
okay,
number of ways that are expenses are associated with PUC, and the largest single one is legal fees
okay, all right,
by far.
Imagine that.
It's
yeah.
$7 million or something. I mean, it's a big number.
So it is a governor appointed board.
Mhm.
And Colorado does not pay for so it's a fee recovery agency?
No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
if it is completely or not.
I don't.
Is it some portion is probably public money? Probably some large portion.
But yeah, clearly there's an offset. I just don't know whether it's,
If
there's a,
it's just hundreds of thousands that Black Hills pays to the PUC, it's probably there's probably got to be a lot of public money or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they do so much beyond just electricity. They
Oh,
do
yeah.
water, they do taxis,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do all
Yeah.
kinds of different things.
No, yeah,
So-
that,
Gas.
So they have to, they.
It has to be a large state agency funded through the budget.
Yeah. So we could probably look that up. Those are good comments, good questions. Anybody, and then you had, Emily, I didn't capture it on here, but you had a couple of comments too.
One, but you can probably find it better.
Let's see.
Unfortunately.
If you've taken a look at John's, okay. Take a look at the second, John starts with the red lettering. Okay, if you go on that second page, I think Emily was talking about under electric grid utility. You're talking the factors impacting rates. And what I was thinking about this whole thing was just a very generalized between the IOUs and between co-ops and municipalities of just summarizing a little bit with the generation, not getting into all the specifics, but just to cover that. But under 4, Emily had talked about factors impacting rates would be profits. Isn't that,
Yeah.
because the profits could be included for, well, we know they're included with the investor-owned utilities, but also could be in the municipal utility. Profits could be included. So,
so you're saying that these are the things that they all have in common, is that what?
well, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so, yeah, profits.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and
I mean, what's the point?
it was gonna
Yeah.
be, and I was thinking about it in the debt repayment, because that's you're gonna have different interest rates that they can do, plus the investor-owned utilities can make a profit on the debt repayment too.
So the way I would say that, and fact check me here, but it is profits if applicable,
Okay,
because for certain categories, it's not applicable.
yeah, that's a good point. That way you can just try to simplify it and take a look at each one and try to compare and contrast. As much as we can, it's a very complex issues, but you need to try to get it down to the point where you can look at some of the basic things and try to compare and contrast. And basically, if you go through it, we got the Black Hills energy option, which they got the generation, transmission, distribution, and customer rates. And what I would foresee that we're doing is we're just comparing the proposals that we get to Black Hills. So we just have the Black Hills as, we're not, if you want to go back to the Black Hills, the report that we submitted previously has all of the detail. What I would envision is just trying to pick out some of the major things in that and put it in this little summary. Then you could, each one basically take a look at the municipal utility or the cooperative, and there could be hybrids for each one of those, but I just kept it to those basic municipal and co-op. You'd look at the feasibility studies that each one would give. You take a look at what their assessment is of Black Hill energy system. You have the service area, the generation, transmission, distribution. Then they would estimate the value of the systems. And then I just listed, just for everybody's benefit, the estimated utility operating budget, just some of the line items, and then also some of the non-operating budget costs. Just a little bit of a review, because that was all in that. Just about everything here is already in the report that we submitted, just taking out some of these factors.
Yeah.
And then once we had information that from each one of the studies, then we would try to evaluate. Do an evaluation, and take a look at the generation, transmission, distribution, and take a look at the estimated rates. And then I put in there, and I believe this was from Black Hills. What was the company that you guys used, John, for the Pueblo study?
Concentric.
I believe number 5 under the evaluation is some of the things that they had evaluated in looking at the system. So those are just, and I'm not saying that those are the only things, but those are, I think, very big issues that would have to go through. We'd have to go through that. And basically, a lot of those things in the system would come underneath your legal, regulatory, economic, all of those different risks would fall into some of those categories below. And then at the very end, it would be what type of what's the process that we need to follow. That way, just to keep things, we would look at all the different, at the 2 different proposals and with the same criteria of looking, and I think we've talked a lot about with the rates being a main emphasis. But we could try to stay consistent with looking at it and trying to identify as many issues as we can, like political, legal, regulatory, economic, and what some of the barriers are, local control issues, who pays for what. So I just tried to take a look at the 3 questions that we had from the last meeting, and then I went back and looked at the report that we've already submitted to the city council and took out quite a few of these things from there. So I didn't really reinvent anything. I just took things out of the study we've already done.
So one of the things I think that we need to tell city council is if there's a lack of knowledge about a particular, lack of facts or, lack of knowledge about a particular issue, what can be done to fill that data gap? That may be, that probably, I think, needs to be included in our report. In other words, if we say, okay, well, the various studies that we received did not really tell us come to a conclusion about a particular set of facts, that may be critical to us to making a decision at the city level. And so knowing if there's data gaps and what would need to be done to fill them would be important to include in our report to city council.
So maybe what we could do to put that in is if you would look underneath either the municipal or the co-op, underneath the studies, maybe make a number 5 and just say lack of data or data gaps or something to that.
Yeah. Data gaps and what's needed, and then, some idea of what we think, how that will shake out and what you have to do to fill that data gap.
Or just so that people are aware.
Yeah, or yes,
Right, yeah.
right, exactly.
We just don't,
I mean, we may not, right.
we just don't know all the information, and I don't know that we can know all the
Yeah.
information. So, but I think that's a very good point. Because we need to bring those, we're not going to know everything, right? We're just going to have to do the best we can with what information we have. And then it's some of the, I was just thinking some of the, looking at some of these studies, like if you went to the value of the assets of Black Hills Electric, it's probably going to be decided by a court anyway. So, you get the studies, one study will say another certain amount, another study will say another amount. Ultimately, courts are going to determine what the cost is. So some of the issues are very, you just don't know, right?
And don't forget that there's 2 kind of layers of cost, and that's what I captured here under number 2. Because there's a cost for total system replacement, and that is calculable. And you can know that, cost. There's the value, that's where the courts come in and say, okay, here's the value. But that's of the system as it sits. And the problem is if you have, for instance, this may be an applicable example or maybe not. But if you have a 50-year-old power pole that's being held, the poles being held up by the poles on either side of it, and you buy that pole through a determined cost by court, you're going to want to replace that pole before, as part of your acquisition cost. You're going to want to figure that in, the kind of have to do type stuff. And that's the cost to repair or replace assets that may be at the end of their life. And so that's kind of an addition to whatever a court might say, here's the value of the system.
I appreciate you putting that in, because that's very important.
So John, we as a committee give reports to council. Okay? So when all our reports are in, so what's council do then? Is council going to make a recommendation to the community? Or, it's ultimately up to the community. It's not up to council. It's not up to us.
Well, my first response is when in trouble, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout.
What's your second dog line?
Is that plan A?
In other words, what the heck, right?
So what we're trying to do is provide facts and data the best that we can, maybe some opinion, to council on what's the best way to go forward. That's what our ask is from council. What are the energy options? What do they mean? What we're trying to capture that the best we can. Once council gets that report, then what's going to happen from there? Well, I don't know. It kind of depends on what CORE may say in their report. That may depend on what Guzman says in their report. So there's a lot of depends about what the future is going to look like.
But I guess there's a lot of time invested in the process.
Yeah.
A lot of time invested in the process. So this goes to council.
Mhm.
Council mulls it over. There's not a lot they can do but put it on the ballot.
There's
Is that right?
one of the options is do nothing. Just continue with what we've got.
But is that is council going to recommend to the general public what to do?
John can't speak for all of council.
Okay,
But
Emily.
it's
Okay,
I
Emily.
can't either.
No, but there must be some kind of a endpoint here. Is this information that is provided to council? What does council then do?
I think it goes to what John was saying. I think it just depends on ultimately what do we have. We don't know that yet. I don't know what Ryan knows, but I don't know that we have anything definitive yet from Fort Owens. To my knowledge, we don't. So I think it's going to depend. And it's a full range of things.
Right.
If we could get back from these two companies, hey, it's been nice talking to you, but it just doesn't work from our perspective. Or we could get something that's like the best thing ever. We don't know yet, so.
Well, I think using these criteria, right now, we've got a blank tape. We need, it's all down one side and then it's across the top, these things that you're using as criteria. And then we have to fill in those blanks under each segment whether it's Black Hills or Guzman, as to what that information is and compare. And it's like, okay, here they're really good, down here they're not so good. And that's where we're gonna get what we present to council, I think.
Okay, that's all cool. I understand that process.
Okay,
I'm saying what happens after we present to council, after the report goes to council, then what happens?
well, we're hoping it's going to be clear one way or another.
Clear about what we can't make that, we can present the facts as we
Right,
see them.
right. Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Well,
We can't determine what the citizenry is gonna vote.
So really, that's what, I think that's really the bottom line of what has to happen. Whatever happens as a result of our study, and when council is looking at it, what they're gonna do, it is gonna involve a public discussion,
mhm,
the best that we can.
Yeah.
Of what the options are and what each one means, and what may be best for the city. And it could be that council will make that decision. That's what we're elected for, is to make decisions. It could be that it's something we want to put on a referendum, and say, it could be a momentous enough decision
yeah.
that we absolutely will need the advice and consent of the voters before taking a particular path.
So no, it doesn't necessarily go to the voters. It's not an absolute that it would go to the voters.
It depends on what
Okay,
it
okay.
is. No, I mean, I think
Okay,
we looked at charter language, I think, before, and I think it's most likely something will go to the voters unless we decide that we're doing, like you said, the do nothing option and just continue as is, then there's nothing to take. But I think a lot of other options or possibilities would go. But it's up to council, to decide, are they, as a council, going to take a position on something and or refer it to the ballot without a position, or, there's a lot of different ways that can go. I don't anticipate, I don't know what that is.
If I could throw out a recommendation, do an RFP for suppliers and other pieces, because you're not going to know
Right.
Well,
what the
right,
estimated
yeah,
value
yeah,
of the system is.
yeah.
Anyone can calculate it, but it's going to be decided by the courts.
Yeah,
So that number is going to be fluctuate from between very low to very, very high. So as long as you have a provider partner that can come in and say, yeah, I'll do it, here's my price. And then you can throw out all the different scenarios and figure out if it makes sense. And I think that's how you, if you want to move it forward, you have a partner first. That's where I think Pueblo maybe did it incorrectly, because they weren't trusted. They said, well, who's going to supply our power? If you guys did a Chuos Core, Guzman-like entity, Black Hills, or whoever you go with, if you choose that partner day one, that'll make it easier for the voters to see what the savings could be. And then obviously, you have to go through the legal piece of it. And then they'll probably have another vote later on to make, once you have all the numbers.
right. That's a good point, Andrew, and, I've talked before about what we're going to get is not in response to a standardized RFP.
Right.
And so it's a limitation for us in this committee and for the council, because we have not yet done that. We can't, in other words, it's not an apples to apples necessarily.
And that's why I was talking about data gaps, because if it's not apples to apples, that may require a consultant
Right.
Yeah.
to figure that out, to put it on an apples to apples basis, so that we're all playing from the same book. And so knowing, oh, wait a minute, here's something we don't know, but to know it, it's gonna cost $250,000, or something like that.
For phase two, I know I haven't seen Core's study, but for our study, it answers the majority of these questions except for the replacement cost. Because you have to have someone actually walk the lines.
Right.
And that's, and it's more than, what's included in this study. But that would be a logical next step if everything else aligned for either Core or, the Guzman. And again, Guzman hired a third party, so this wasn't done in-house. We should have it done by the end of this week, but hopefully it'll answer the majority of these questions other than that cost.
Ryan, do you have any updates from Core on where they are that you can share with us?
We had the letter that we received and discussed in executive session with city council. Our city attorney and myself will be meeting with CORE. Fortunately, we couldn't get any dates that lined up, so it's not going to be until the end of May.
End of May.
Maybe.
Okay, well, someday we'll reclaim our money,
Well,
people.
The heat is
Okay.
off now. Or we can take
Yeah.
our time on this.
Yeah,
Oh, dear. Good grief. Uh,
Well, you know, we're not gonna wait forever. We've
No,
talked about that before, that, you know, we'll see what we get within our lifetimes and we'll move on that.
You're talking about some pretty major issues.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
and a long-term
You-
decision that's gotta be made
You'd
right.
be a lot better off making sure you take a little extra time
Yeah.
and make sure that you get as much information as you can to make a best decision that you can, or recommendations that you can make. So, you know, we're just thankful that we're not paying $250,000 for studies that the companies came up and were willing to have the interest in pursuing this venture.
and when we get the studies, we'll be able to use the criteria that we've got here. We may go back and forth and say, based on the studies, oh, wait a minute, here's a question we should ask.
Right.
And so add that to the criteria, you know, or whatever. It's gonna be an iterative process.
Yeah, this is not a fixed thing, you know,
Yeah.
there's more things that, this is just an outline to get us going. It can always be adjusted.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, really.
You bet.
Now, what date were we set to talk with council again?
April 20th.
April 20th. We'll have one more meeting before that.
So we do have April 11th. And then we have April 20th presentation to the vision committee, with the next available after that, July 20th. With a deadline, the Open Records Act deadline of April 12th for documents were to be included as materials for vision. And so where do you think, what do y'all think where that leaves us? I mean, we have a meeting scheduled for 2 weeks, April 11th. Do we need to have that meeting?
Yeah.
I think we need to have all we can. We need, I think we need to, if we're gonna give something like this to council, I think we need to go through this a little bit more thoroughly and try to maybe put that into a PowerPoint or something, because everybody that I've ever seen, it's easier when you can put it up on a PowerPoint.
So it's like Carol said, you know, you've got the criteria going down the side, the different options across the top, and we want to be able to fill in the boxes. So maybe we could get to that matrix too. Maybe that's something that
You want to try to put together the matrix that you're thinking about. And then we could, now does the PowerPoint the PowerPoint doesn't have to go, just,
We can, as long as we have the PowerPoint the day of,
okay, it's just,
before the meeting.
it's just the information if we want to give them like a little outline.
Yeah, if you're gonna get, you know, any documents you want them to review, just, it's not an open records thing, it's just, and for us, putting the packet together, you know, we have to have deadlines in order to get them printed and sent out to council.
So really what I think I'm hearing, let me know if I'm hearing this right. So what I think I'm hearing is, yeah, we want to present to council on the 20th and at least give them an interim report about where we are and what obstacles we see to getting to where we want to be, so that they have some idea that we're not just, you know, that we have been diligent.
Well,
We
I
have been
think
working on this.
I think I might give them a breakdown of things that we've done,
Right.
too. You know, that we took the tour, that we have these
Met with.
entities coming toward us, that we've met with Black Hills about various things. You know, just, I can't remember all the stuff we've done, but if we went through our minutes, so to
Yeah,
speak,
I got
and
it.
just kind of went, okay, and we've done these 5 projects so that they see we're not just sitting around eating donuts. Very seldom
Well-
eating donuts.
Hey, we have a couple of
Yeah.
spokespeople right here that can attest to that.
Oh, I know,
And,
but
and
council needs to know that, you know,
They do.
exactly what we've been doing.
I agree that they need to get a pretty good idea what we're doing.
Take care.
See you, John, but I
Yeah.
don't think we'll be able to answer all the questions
Oh,
that
no.
may be in the matrix. So sometimes we just may have to put a question.
Well,
Well, I don't think we'll answer any questions, or maybe one can answer a few. I don't know what we're gonna
yeah,
have.
for,
But
by
I don't think
that,
it's important. to report to
Yeah.
council.
Yeah.
I
That's where we
think
are.
questions might be more around process than anything
yeah,
else.
exactly.
Just to give them an idea of
Mhm.
how we plan to go in the future.
Yeah.
You know, what we're looking at,
Yeah.
where we're at, how we
That's
how we're
plan
going
on
about it.
evaluating
Yeah.
stuff.
This was a vision committee meeting, so it will be a dialogue.
Mhm.
And so we can be informed by what the input
Yeah.
we receive from council too.
Yeah, that should
Yeah.
be good.
And what's that date again?
And the
April
public,
20th.
we hope the public is paying attention to what we're doing too.
Well, I think that's an important reason to continue on with having the presentation, because it's been a while since the public survey. I think.
Yes.
And what, give me details,
5 PM.
5 PM right here.
right here, okay. Thank you.
And I think an education program is gonna be needed too, to inform the public.
Oh, yeah,
One thing, well, we've already seen programs that are already occurring right now.
yeah,
So it's just important for us to get as much information as we can, just explain so that the public knows. And that might have to be very creative, but the time will come when we need to put such a public program together.
What we don't want to have happen is hand the report over to city council and have them all resign.
Oh, no.
Kind of like Florence.
Too
This
soon.
is a- Donuts and what's going on in Florence are 2 different things. Similar, but still.
Really?
Oh my
The whole
gosh.
council, all they have down
Really?
there is a mayor.
What was the reason behind that?
Oh.
Hard to say.
It's a saga.
The saga?
It's a
Yeah.
true saga.
Well, we have lunch, we will talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Ah,
it's kind of like in West Cliff, they always have something going on about Round Mountain Water. For a
well, if
little
this was
town,
only
that
about
place
water,
has
it
more
wouldn't be
problems.
nearly as embarrassing. It's like, you know,
What's that?
I know, I've been,
Sure.
I just get the paper from
Oh,
West
I
Cliff.
don't-
We have a place
Don't
Yeah,
mind at all.
for,
oh,
it's been going on. Oh,
I
you think so?
I think what John's
Huh?
gonna do is he's
What,
gonna
the
take
city attorney?
the information from.
oh, no, what I mean is it's
And
expensive.
add these
Oh, yeah.
corrections.
It's costly, I don't mean
And he's
Yeah.
gonna
one to take.
send that out.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
resend that.
yeah, yeah.
I'll take it out of track changes too.
Yeah, because John's got all the corrections that were made in red
yeah.
and, or additions that he thought. And then we'll just add some of the other things.
Okay.
Capture from today's meeting, and John will get that all put together and send it out to everybody for the criteria. Thanks, John.
So I have a question on the hybrid one. I don't want to interrupt you guys. going through it. So the hybrid on your red line,
Yeah.
I mean, the profits don't have to go back to the investor. I mean, technically, depending how it's set up, come back to the CCA. So maybe just, I think it's to be determined really, depending on the structure, right?
Okay, so how would you?
I would just say if profits to owners, I mean, it's really, could be to depending on the PUC structure, because it could be set up like California where there's monetary benefit back to the CCA, or it could be set up where it's just a pass through. And so there's different ways to do it. So it really is a legislative structure.
So, but the hybrid,
You were
in my
thinking-
mind, the hybrid is a Black Hills with a Guzman
Right.
to provide, so purchase wholesale electricity, have a electric company do the distribution, and customer service. So it would be really a mix or
So it's like, it's still, but it's still like a CCA, right? Is what you're thinking,
Like a CCA.
a community choice aggregation.
oh.
Is that what you were thinking with that hybrid
No, I
concept?
don't think so.
No,
I think it's more like Hermiston, Oregon,
which is,
a wholesale power is purchased from others.
Mhm.
And then the Umatilla REA provides all the customer service, all the operations and maintenance.
Yeah.
And that's a hybrid.
That
okay,
was my
okay,
thinking.
that was your thinking, oh, not CCA, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Because that's really down the road a little bit. They're not being done with the study till
So-
the end of this year.
that doesn't mean that there won't be savings
Yeah.
that turn up in
Yeah.
rate cuts, right? It just means that if there's profit in operating the
It
system,
flows back.
it still goes back to the
Understand.
IOU or whoever.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Or the city. I
What's
mean,
it?
the city can take,
Could be an agreement.
the city often does in these communities.
Yeah, they'd be like at the very least, a franchise fee of some sort, right?
Sort of the equivalent.
Yeah,
It's got
equivalent.
that description about it.
Municipalities on average get 5.5%. Sorry, give 5.5% of the community, and that's after they pay all their costs. So that's the average run.
Okay. Well, so I've got some.
Yeah, thanks.
It's not supposed to work that way, is it? You're supposed to delegate.
And so I'll be working on putting this together in time for us to take a look at it before our next meeting, which is
Or 11.
April 11th. And then we'll be preparing for the vision committee. That'll be basically going over the documents that we've got, preparing that and
We want to do a PowerPoint. Would you recommend a PowerPoint?
I would
Yeah,
recommend the
yeah.
PowerPoint, yes.
Maybe not a real lengthy one.
Yeah.
but it always
No.
helps, I think.
Yeah.
Just to go-
and it needs to have what Carol said, which is what we've done so far. you know,
Right.
All the visits we've made and stuff like that. I've got that captured.
Well,
We can
that's
divide up
on
the
page.
load on
Oh,
things
sure,
too.
yeah.
Sure.
I can do
Yeah.
PowerPoint. I can make.
Then maybe we can develop the PowerPoint
Yeah.
next meeting. Go through.
Yeah,
you know,
that gives, well, what's the date?
Well, we don't have to
Send
have
it to-
PowerPoint.
Oh, PowerPoint, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, the day before, yeah,
So
or
I
day
think
of.
with what John is putting together with the written material, the revised from today, we'll have that to look at for next meeting. And then if everybody is comfortable with that, then we'll just get that to Ryan. And get that to council.
Yeah.
I've got a question going back to a topic we talked about earlier regarding the polling.
Yeah,
Should there be a response from this committee to inform people that there's a poll out there? It's not ours, or is there a sense from
It
that?
just kind of worries me.
Don,
That
we really think of.
You know, the poll, the wording of the poll, in my personal opinion, was inappropriate. And so you make a good point, maybe as a committee, we need to make it clear.
You
It
know,
isn't our poll.
And it may be as simple as we understand there's a poll out there, but it doesn't come out of the committee.
Or the-
That way we are not
Or- yeah, well,
saying
we are.
appropriate, inappropriate, or
Yeah.
whatever. We understand there's a poll out there and it does not come out of the committee.
Would you recommend putting some of the language down that we received as far as what the poll said?
No.
well, when I get home, I'll try and follow.
Well, Don, I haven't looked at the actual poll, but it's attached to that question.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea to kind of take a look at the
Take a
actual
look at
poll,
that.
because I didn't do
Take a look
that.
at that.
See,
And see
I
what
have
it
an
really
issue with
says.
any kind of appropriate, inappropriate, or whatever, because we don't know where the poll came
Yeah, I think the thing I'm concerned about
Black
is,
Hills.
It's
Yeah.
in Black
Black
Hills.
Hills.
from.
Black Hills.
Jackie,
Oh, yeah.
Black Hills
Black Hills
put it
did.
out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
John
He confirmed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it appropriate for the city and the council to let everyone know that's from Black Hills?
John?
I mean,
think so.
because it's kind of misleading, because I mean, another John sitting right here. They-
Well, right,
They
right.
look at the council, oh, John sent it out.
Right,
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, let me talk to the city attorney regarding some of those things.
Yeah.
I think you need to talk to him about even responding.
Mhm.
Because I imagine with the city or the council, it would say from the city, from the council, or this is kind of misleading,
Yeah.
kind of behind the scenes. Oh, this must be from the city, so I'll fill it out.
We're not there.
right.
John, your phone may be blowing up. What's this about?
The, makes it interesting. You know,
We're
the,
paying for the damn-
so find out what the attorneys say.
Yep.
You know, it's probably wise to say something,
Yeah.
knowing how rumors go around this town.
At the very least, to distance or provide some separation.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
I think that's.
And the poll was sent out as a text?
I think that's what I heard.
Oh, well, yeah.
I didn't
So we
receive.
just
it.
know one person that got it, is that all? we know?
That's all I've heard from. So,
Well, we are collective, that's all. The only.
Yeah.
I imagine this group got dropped out.
Yeah,
I
thank-
don't know.
Was it, do you think the person was randomly selected or targeted?
That's a great question.
And I don't think John Kegel addressed that. Is it a statistically valid
Yeah,
sample
right,
or
right,
were
right,
people targeted?
yeah.
I don't. I haven't-
Because,
It's going to be used for campaigning.
oh, you know it,
It started.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
even if we're
I'm
not ready.
surprised.
Well.
We're ready.
Well, I mean, we're not ready to put anything on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're ready.
We're ready for them to campaign.
Oh. Yeah, for sure.
And that's another reason I mentioned, picking a power provider, Core, a Guzman-like entity or whatever. They can help you with that from the
Yeah.
financial side.
Right.
Mhm.
That's another thing I think when I look at, and I've talked to Steve over this with Pueblo, if Pueblo would have picked a partner, whoever it was, that partner most likely would have said, yeah, I'll contribute. But if
Yeah.
you don't know if you're a partner, it's a huge investment.
Oh,
you
Yeah,
know?
sure.
To
Absolutely.
Yeah.
have maybe
Yeah.
be selected.
Yeah.
So
Right. Pretty happy with,
it is.
pretty happy. with.
Yeah. Well, it was such a bad, I mean, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and you couldn't go door knocking, and it was just.
Okay.
we were successful.
Any other comments for the good of the order? Andrew, do you have anything? you'd like to
Just
say?
want to reiterate, Guzman's still interested. I know I'm always listening to the Zoom. I try to stay out here in person, just so I know you guys are doing your work and I don't want to be a bother there. But Guzman's still very interested and we should have a report by the end of this week by the third party. So we got a draft like Friday. And it should, like I said, answer the majority of the questions other than the system value. He gave an opinion on that, but it's not, it's going to be, need more
Poll by
detail.
poll.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah. Free,
Start over. So I think we're done.
All right.
Thank you all.